Hey everyone, good evening. Sorry about the couple of minutes delay. And yeah, welcome to the channel and thank you very much for being here. Just give me 1 minute to confirm that I have a good signal to YouTube. Yes, we have an excellent connection. And yes, everything is looking good in the stats. So guys, thank you. I have with me Shamoon Kakan from The Crosstalk, and I've spoken about him many times before on my channel. Many of you have signed up with him. Thank you for that. Shamoon Kakan is an ex-Muslim. He's a Pakistani, and he's currently living in Swaziland. And I'll introduce him and let him tell you guys a little bit about himself in just a moment. And of course, he will also introduce more about today's subject and today's topic. However, we are here to discuss the implications of Muhammad's child marriage on Islam and, of course, on Muslims. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us in the chat. If you have any comments, please put them below. And yeah, let me introduce Shamoon. Thank you, Shamoon, for being here with me today.
You're welcome, Lloyd. Good to be here with you. Can you hear me?
Yes, say again, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. For some reason, your audio is coming through on a totally different channel. That's, yeah, but that's okay. Right, everyone, can everyone hear us comfortably? Good evening, Stephen Gilchrist. Right. So, Shamoon, just introduce yourself, please, and if need be, I will sort out the audio issues on my end.
Okay, so my name is Shamoon Khakan. I am 30 years of age. I converted to Christianity about 10 years, I'll safely say 11 years ago now. Spent about 6 years in seminary, doing my master's thesis now on comparative studies in Christianity and Islam. And so a couple of months ago, I just really got interested in 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 specifically YouTube channel. I've always been interested in apologetics because it touches home with me personally in the sense that I've converted. So it's something that I've always faced is providing answers for the faith that I have. So my journey began, as I said, in seminary 6 years ago, and so now the interest in YouTube is basically providing the content that I have learned all these years in seminary, and providing answers for specifically Muslims and well, across the board more, but because of my past I generally deal with Muslims. So yeah, that's a little about me. I hope that was sufficient.
Okay, no, I think that was fine. Let me just minimize that. Okay, yes, everyone can hear us both. And no, thank you. That's very interesting. And I do believe on your channel you have a special interest in discussing the Trinity. This is something that you know that Muslims have a difficult time with. And do you feel that you'll be spending more time trying to define this and helping Muslims to understand the genuine, to provide a genuine understanding of the Trinity, being that this is such a contentious issue?
Yes, yes. I do have a very keen interest in the study of the Trinity because, as I said, like even early on, is that being a Christian, I think one of the key issues dealing with the skeptics of the Christian religion is on primarily the issue of the Trinity. And so, somewhat, I take that personally. So I've spent a significant amount of my time as a Christian seminarian, just really discovering the Trinity. And my PhD, I will be moving towards doing a dissertation on the Trinity as well.
Okay, no, that sounds interesting, and it's really, we're very lucky, we're very blessed to have someone with your knowledge and your experience being part of this community and trying to do some outreach, provide some understanding, to build a bridge, as it were. And
Yeah.
so yeah. So as you know, my channel, I focus mostly on Islamic law. Typically, it is just called the Sharia for convenience sake. Now, of course,
Yeah.
Islamic scholars do make a distinction between the Sharia and the fiqh. Certainly, there are these distinctions, but generally, in everyday parlance, Muslims simply just use the term the Sharia. So we're not going to go overly into the distinction. However, the Sharia is the culmination of the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sirah. It is all of these timeless
Yeah.
moral principles, the actions of Muhammad, the statements of Muhammad, his commandments, his prohibitions, the same for Allah, things that are said, things that are implied, and these have all been collected by the scholars, and these have been collected into these timeless moral laws of Islam, Islam's sacred law. And the fiqh is obviously the application of man's understanding to these and then applying that to the life of the Muslim, to the civilization of Islam. So this is the human understanding of the Sharia. Now, we will be, when I say the term Sharia, I fully understand that there is a difference. And today we're going to be utilizing a lot of information from two of the major Sharia manuals in the world today. We'll be using a Hanafi fiqh manual called the Hidayah, Volume 1. Everyone can please check in the description. That's also in the first pinned chat. Sorry, no, the first pinned comment on the channel. You can download these manuals, as well as, of course, the Reliance of the Traveler, which is the most thorough compendium for Islamic law. So we're here today to talk about Muhammad's marriage to Aisha, and you had a series of questions. We wanted to explore the questions, the moral ramifications, the evidence for what we're about to present, and of course how this impacts Islam, how this impacts Muslims, and to get to the truth of this. And of course we want to well, I'll leave it at that. And then of course you want to tell us at the end why you feel this does not allow you to accept Islam and to be a Muslim. So if you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So one of the things, just converting into Islam, and not necessarily converting, but in my case, is remaining a Muslim. I'm faced with this question: is why don't you come back to Islam? And the Trinity doesn't make sense, or whatever the case is. Like, there's a lot of accusation against Christianity and its weak points doctrinally and theologically. So me wanting to have this discussion with you, I think it plays a significant role in the sense that, granted, for argument's sake, even if I say that, for hypothetically, I'm just saying for argument's sake, right? I'm not conceding to that. That the Trinity actually doesn't make sense, that Jesus is not God in the Bible, that the Bible is the most fallacious book, most corrupt, dishonest material that exists on planet Earth. Great. However, would me leaving Christianity be reason enough for me to go into the bosom of Islam? And that's my problem, is that I've actually realized certain things that I may leave Christianity hypothetically, but would that drive me straight into the lap of Islam? Not necessarily, because of certain really morally disturbing things that I have objectively found. I've got nothing against Islam. I've got nothing against Muslims. But in the sense that personally, I struggle severely with accepting the dire moral issues that I find within Islamic sources that define what Islam is. And so that's why I think that this discussion with you, a student of Sharia, can actually educate me on this, is that and further clarify certain questions that I have. That is it true that Muhammad married Aisha, and what does that mean for Muslims and Islam as a whole? So
yeah, well, the simple implication.
Does that help you?
No, certainly. So I think the audience knows this. You have Muslim family, you love them dearly. There has been some distance, I think, with some of your family members since you converted to Christianity. However, you still care about your family. And I think everyone on the channel realizes none of us hate Muslims, right? We all know Muslims, we have friends who are Muslims. So there is no animosity. But we do have a concern with the ideology, and we do have a concern with some of the things that are written, especially about the life of Muhammad, that we feel are questionable, morally questionable. Now, in terms of your question,
Okay.
anything
Yeah.
that
So
will, yeah,
let's.
yeah.
So you want to dive into the questions? Can I start asking you now?
You can, yeah. Let's start with the first question, and we'll just take it from there, and we'll have hopefully just have a conversation about this, provide the resources. Oh, one little comment, guys. For those who are meeting Shamoon for the first time, please, his link is in the description, as well as in the pinned comment below. Please sign up on his channel. He's got some wonderful content, some really, really well thought out theological discussions, and please do support him. And also, by the way, my channel has just been monetized by YouTube like 2 days ago, so I believe I can accept super chats. So if you guys want to support the channel that way, please go ahead. And I'm also helping Shamoon build his channel. So one of the first things you guys can do, please sign up and support him. Thank you. All right, Shamoon, so let's go ahead. And,
Okay. So my first question is the basic question is, was Aisha really a child of 6 years of age when Muhammad married her? Is that true?
according to Islamic sources, this is true. Now, we need to define that the Islamic sources that make this claim are the Sirah, which today are termed effectively the biographies of Muhammad, or would be the Gospels of Muhammad, right?
Yeah.
So we have evidence from the Sirah that, and from also one of the major scholars of Islam, Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Kathir, who is one of the 28 major scholars of Islam, right? So he is one of the foundational scholars of Islam. So we have that. We also have the Sahih Hadith. We have Sahih Bukhari, multiple attestations, as well as Sahih Muslim and others. Now, don't forget, it is considered obligatory that Muslims must believe. It is obligatory for Muslims to accept the Sahih Hadith. It is obligatory for Muslims to accept a mutawatir Hadith. So therefore, this evidence is considered rock solid, and it must be believed as if they were present and witnesses to the event.
Okay, so let me get this right. So basically you're saying that the Islamic sources 100% confirms that Aisha was 6 years of age when Muhammad married her.
Yeah, we can go to the sources. Let me just pop up my first source.
Okay, so let's have a look.
I don't have OneNote listed, so I'm going to grab the whole screen. Okay, I'm grabbing the entire screen here. Right, so this is in my OneNote database, and I will be doing a show on the channel at some point to discuss women in Islam, which includes Aisha. Now, this is from the Sirat Ibn Kathir, volume 2, page 94, and I can provide a link to this book if people are interested, so after the show I can link to this. Urwa stated, here's Mursal, incomplete. So anyway, his statement, he contracted marriage with Aisha when she was 6, thereafter consummating with her when she was 9, is not disputed by anyone and is well established in the Sahih collections of traditions and elsewhere. And that is from Ibn Kathir, one of the prime scholars of Islam, one of the top 28 scholars of all time in Islam. So that's the first piece of evidence. Now, of course, we will discuss a few things, right? Of course, there are objections from Muslims, like you'll find that people will say that Aisha said when a girl reaches the age of 9, she's a woman. Now, a girl is not a woman, but this is the kind of evidence that Muslims provide in their defense. In Yemen, Imam Shafi apparently said, in Yemen, I saw many girls aged 9 who had reached puberty. And of course, some of these hadith collections, we don't know how authentic they are. We don't know how authoritative they are. So again, Shafi said, the earliest age at which I heard of girls reaching puberty was the women of Tihama who reached puberty at the age of 9. And so on. I saw a grandmother who was 21 years old. Shafi also said in Sannah, Yemen, I saw a grandmother who was 21 years old. She had reached puberty at the age of 9 and gave birth at the age of 10, and her daughter reached puberty at the age of 9 and gave birth at the age of 10. Your thoughts on that? This was given to me by a Muslim in defense of Muhammad's marriage.
Okay, I'm trying to look at that. I saw grandma.
While you're that thunderous one, that is a very good question.
Yes.
What is a boy when he reaches the age of 9? He's a boy.
Yeah, of course. Sure. Okay, so yes, we're I appreciate these sources. I'd like us to kind of like look at specifically the issue of Aisha.
Okay. Well,
Is
so
that
let's continue, and I'll give you a few more. But go on. Sorry, your question.
okay? In specific, okay, so this is I see
Yeah.
you've opened another
So
source
let me
here.
let me go through all the sources, and then we'll talk. So I will
Okay.
provide the I will provide the traditional sources. These are from the Sirah, from the Hadith, as well as from Islam's largest online advice website, Islam QA, which sees traffic of up to 400 million visits per month. And so they provide answers, they provide information to Muslims. They put out fatwa, they provide advice, they try to provide a correct understanding to Muslims up to 400 million times per month. So we can assume that
Huh.
this is a valid website. It's one of the biggest Islamic advice sites in the world, if not the biggest. So this was a
Okay,
question, and
and
they yeah.
a little disclaimer that the primary author of this website is a Mohammed Salih Al-Munajid. He is a scholar, right?
Right.
He is
And
a
but it
Salafi
solicits this
scholar.
website solicits information. This website solicits information from various sheikhs who contribute. So it's not just one scholar; it's
Yeah.
hundreds of scholars. So you have major
Okay.
sheikhs who have studied for 5 to 7 years at seminary, who are providing these
Yeah.
fatwa,
So
providing
it's
answers.
it's definitely it is a notable
Yes,
website.
it provides answers
Okay.
from across other websites as well. So it collates those answers. Thunderous ones. So Allah caused women to mature earlier than men. So by implication, women are superior to males. That's an interesting implication. That so so women are more mature by male than males by Allah's design. So yeah, that would be an interesting implication. Now, on the website
Hmm.
Islam QA, refutation of the lie that the Prophet married Aisha when she was 18. So they're attempting to refute the lie that she was 18. And it says here,
It's interesting that you say that because that's one very common and regular response that I generally get is that no, she was not six, she was 18, etc., etc. And so it's interesting that this website specifically calls that out and says that that is a lie.
yes,
Hmm,
correct. This
interesting.
website, yep. Just remember to monitor your page for any chat, if in case it comes up. Okay, nothing. All right, now understand. So they provide multiple. The Sahih Hadith state the Prophet did the marriage contract with Aisha when she was 6 years old and consummated the marriage with her when she was 9. The Hadiths include the following: the Messenger of Allah married me when I was 6, and he consummated marriage with me when I was 9. Right? So they talk about
Hmm.
Al Bukhari 3894, Muslim 1422. I used to play with dolls. It is not legal for a girl who is mature, a woman, in other words, to play with dolls, but children are allowed to play with dolls. So she was married while she was still playing with dolls. So my
Sure.
friends would hide
Okay.
themselves and would call them to come and play with me. Narrated by Bukhari, 7130, Muslim 2440. And of course, so Aisha mentions, these are my dolls, right? So she was playing with dolls. Now, Al Khattabi says, now these are just opinions, these are not necessarily authoritative rulings, right? The concession was only granted allowing Aisha to play with toys because at that time she had not yet reached the age of puberty.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's okay. Well, we're it seems like we're going into our second question, but yeah, I'll ask my second question, but you can keep going.
Right.
Well,
So
that's pretty clear, eh?
yeah. So
Okay.
we have Muslim says she was 7 years old when she was taken to him as a bride, and when she was 9 years old, she was taken, to have the marriage consummated. Now there is a slight discrepancy between all the Sahih Hadith with her age. Some of them say 7, most say 6. Now, of course, Muslims do use slight discrepancies within the Gospels to invalidate them, so I'm not sure how we are to take these slight discrepancies or many discrepancies within the Hadith. Now, what is meant by dolls is these toys that young girls play with. This highlights that she was very, very young, right? So in this report,
Well, yeah, prior to the age of puberty, whatever that is at this stage within the scholar's mind. right?
Right. Now, in Sharh Muslim, which is a commentary, basically a commentary on the Sahih Muslim, the way to reconcile,
Yeah.
this is from Imam Sheikh al-Islam Nawawi. The way to reconcile between the two ages, 6 and 7, is to note that she was 6 years and some months. So sometimes she only mentioned the years, and sometimes she counted the year that she had embarked upon, her 7th year. That's how they reconcile this. So she was 6 years and some months. The words he married her when she was 6 years old and consummated when she was 9 are a matter concerning which, and this is a ruling, so there is no difference of opinion among the scholars, as it is proven in the Sahihs and elsewhere. And the Prophet consummated the marriage with her 2 years after he migrated to Medina. So,
Okay, you just a question for those who do not know. Who is Nawawi?
Imam Nawawi is one of the major scholars within the Shafi'i school. He is possibly the preeminent scholar these days. So you have the founder, Shafi, who founded the Shafi'i school of jurisprudence, but probably the prime scholar, very possibly the prime scholar who ultimately refined and polished all of the fiqh within the Shafi'i school is Nawawi, and he is, I believe, a Sheikh al-Islam. So again, he's one of the 28 most prominent, most revered scholars of Islam.
Okay, so it's of course at this stage, if a layman Muslim, a random Muslim says to me, no, she was 18, I'd rather listen to Nawawi rather than him,
Correct.
right?
Nawawi is a major scholar.
Yeah.
Yes, this
Okay.
is an incredibly. Now, understand we have a quote from, so that was from Bidaya wa Nihaya, whatever that means. And it is well known that scholarly consensus is protected from error. Those who've watched my channel know that I've covered this in detail. Scholarly consensus, because it does say within the Quran, and it's therefore in the Sharia, that my ummah is upon guidance, and Allah will not make the ummah fall upon error, because the ummah cannot agree on misguidance. Tirmidhi narrated, the Messenger of Allah said, Allah will not cause my ummah to agree on misguidance. And that is classed as Sahih al-Albani in Sahih al-Jami. So understand, there's just evidence over and over and over again that she was 9 years old. Now, of course, you have these comments that say when a girl is 9 and so on, but we have at least 16 hadith that claim that she was 9 years old, right? And we've gone through some of that. So, yeah. So now, giving one's children in marriage is permissible, right? So this is within the hadith as well. So, and the iddah for the girl before puberty, that is the waiting period. If you divorce a girl before she is out of puberty, you need to wait 3 months to see if she is pregnant. Okay, and it says here, narrated Aisha, that the Prophet wrote the marriage contract with her when she was 6 and consummated when she was 9. So it is permissible.
Okay, sorry, wait, what is the source that you're reading from? The 5133 narrated Aisha?
I think this is Sahih Bukhari. I need to double check this reference, but this I took directly out of one of the major books of the scholars. So I think.
Okay, well, there's one bottom right below this, Bukhari. You've got a Bukhari right underneath this.
Yeah, so again, I used to play with dolls in the presence of the prophets, and my girlfriends used to play with me. Now it says the Prophet would call them to join me, and the playing with dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it was allowed for Aisha as she was a little girl, not yet reached the age of puberty. And that's in the Fath al-Bari. The Fath al-Bari is the prime commentary upon Sahih Bukhari by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. So this is what scholars read when they try to understand the hadith. They will read the commentaries, and Asqalani is the prime scholar that modern scholars use to understand Sahih Bukhari. So she was not yet at puberty.
So it's a well-established fact within the Islamic sources that Aisha was 6 years old when the Islamic prophet married her, and she was 9 when
Yes.
the marriage was consummated. Because that's my second question, is that you've shown me all the material on the fact that Aisha was 6 years of age, but now the issue is that, like, Ali Dawa and other Muslim apologists who then argue and debate against the fact that no, marriage was consummated at 9 because she was mature. She was physically mature. She had a menstrual cycle going for her, and so she had somehow reached puberty. And so the issue is that we cannot see her as a little child anymore. So, any comments on that?
This is a false claim.
Was she a prepubescent child when Mohammed consummated the marriage?
Let's talk about that in one moment. I want to say thank you, Nicholas. I very, very much appreciate. Thank you for the donation. Really, very grateful. Yeah, if there's any questions, highlight my name with @Lloyd, and I'm more likely to see it. So Momo didn't take. He contributed. Yeah, so we will discuss as much of this as I can. So, in answer to your question, there is no validity to this. Clearly, there's great embarrassment and shame. Now, unfortunately, so you can go through the Sahih Hadith, and of course Muslims will dispute this, and they do, as we've seen. However, as I said, it is obligatory for Muslims to believe the Sahih as if they were witnesses. This is part of what is required of a Muslim. Right? If he's a follower of Islam, then he has to abide by what Muhammad has brought. And Muhammad's message is, of course, in the Hadith and in the Sirah. Now, even more so, if we examine Islamic law, we start to see very, very clearly that Islamic law is predicated on the marriage of adult males with infants. And of course, even with underage boys with adult women. And they certainly speak of infant children, young girls underage having to wait to see if they've fallen pregnant before they can be divorced, girls being divorced before pregnancy, young girls being non-virgins, we're talking underage girls, and we can go through the actual Islamic law and we can see for ourselves how Muhammad's example, his sunnah, has now been incorporated into actual Islamic law. So we can examine the Hanafi fiqh and we can examine the Shafi'i fiqh, just as two examples, because these are the two best textbooks available. These are the two most common Islamic law texts. If anyone disputes that,
okay, so before we go into these things, I'd like you to define the word fiqh. But before you even do that, I just wanted to ask you a simple, straightforward question: is that Muslims say that Aisha was physically mature before Muhammad consummated the marriage. Is this true? Was she, when he consummated the marriage, when he had sex with her?
They say she was an adult. Well, legally in Islam, technically,
yes.
According to, now, the age does vary slightly, but generally, according to Islamic law, puberty is reached at the age of 15. There are references within other schools of fiqh where 18 is their age. However, 15, so if she was 9, she was well under the age of 15. Now, there are many claims that say that a child of such an age can reach puberty, and they do claim that all girls, of course, because, first of all, it is illegal for a Muslim to criticize Muhammad. It is ridda, it is blasphemy. For a Muslim to criticize Muhammad, under Sharia law, that is the penalty of death. Also, of course, Allah will punish
there's a book on that, isn't it, by Ibn Taymiyyah, the unsheathed sword.
Yeah, okay, I'll briefly run through that then. So this is the book here, I'm showing it right now on the screen, the summary of the unsheathed sword against the one who insults the messenger by Sheikh al-Islam. Again, one of the 28 most revered, most influential, most important scholars, most learned scholars of Islam, Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. The book is the unsheathed sword against the one who insults the messenger, and I'll show here the very first entry within the index. Whoever insults the Prophet is to be killed, whether they are Muslim or a disbeliever. So to disparage Muhammad is to insult him, and the penalty is death. Killing is prescribed on the one who insults the Prophet, and it is not permissible to imprison or show favor to him or to ransom him. Any Muslim or non-Muslim who insults the Prophet is to be killed, and repentance is not sought from him. I'll do one more reference from the book, actually two, but this one. The contents of this book concern the Islamic ruling upon those who insult Muhammad. Right? And so this is the purpose of this book, to discuss the Islamic law on those who insult Muhammad. So it mentions again.
But okay, now the issue is that insulting the Islamic prophet is a different thing than just talking about the fact of his life, what he did. There's
a quandary in Islam. there's a quandary in Islam. So I'll go for a minute. Then we need to look at some questions. I'll take a few questions from the from the chat. So first of all, there are multiple attestations I can go through within the Sharia. It is illegal for a Muslim to think any ill of Muhammad, right? First of all, so the first is, I'll mention, this is the one ruling here. This book is entirely detailed, but scholars have consensus that whoever insults the messenger, who attributes a defect to him, then such a person is a disbeliever. And that Muslim who insults is killed. There is no disagreement. This is the view of the 4 Imams. So all 4 schools.
Okay, so wait, just hold on. This quotation is very interesting. Scholars have that red is way too bright. I can't really see behind what's written.
Sorry, let me just change the. I'm going to change that to a different color. Then I'm going to change it to orange. Give me a second.
Okay, because I can't read what's written there.
Okay, my bad. I will alter the color in just a moment, and you should be able to see it now.
Okay, scholars have consensus that whoever insults the messenger. Now, insulting is, it's interesting that it's defined attributing a defect to him. Then such a person is a disbeliever, and that whoever doubts such a person's disbelief, they too are guilty of disbelief. Oh my goodness, that's the Muslim who insults is killed.
So to believe that Muhammad is less than, to not believe Muhammad is perfect, is blasphemy. To fail to believe that Muhammad is perfect.
That's very interesting. So insulting the Islamic prophet is just basically saying that he has a defect.
So Muhammad is the perfect example. He's the perfect man. And of course it says in the Quran that today I've perfected your religion for you.
That's interesting. That's very interesting because, this whole issue of the Islamic prophet's marriage with Aisha, every time I raise this, I've got a local Muslim theologian who actually got very upset with me, and he started saying that I'm insulting his prophet. I'm insulting, that's not good, what I'm doing is bad, etc., etc. And so just kind of like looking at this does make sense, is that for him, in his mind, for me to talk about the fact in contemporary culture that Aisha was 6 years of age and therefore Muhammad married her, of course in our culture that's frowned upon, therefore that's attributing defect to him, and that's automatically insulting. Wow.
Correct. Now don't forget, it also says
that's insightful.
Now also we can cover this. Now we don't have time to go into every aspect of every point we raise, but I will show later in section, if you look in the Reliance, please download a copy, link in the description, P75.2. It is incumbent upon all Muslims to love Muhammad more than their own life, than their mother, their father, their children, their wealth, and their life. Muslims are to love Muhammad more than themselves and more than all people. This is also required, which does seem very much.
Oh, that's interesting. Just a comparative thought that it sounds like loving God in the Christian worldview.
I was about to raise that. You will love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind and all. Yes, it is imperative upon Muslims to love Muhammad more than everything. Thunderous One says, there lays the defense, kill the one who challenges the narrative. Well, that's the 99-1 rule, right? It's like the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules, right? So now understand the Sharia applies not just to Muslims. The Sharia applies to non-Muslims as well. It is to be enforced upon non-Muslims. You'll notice, I do not know anyone who differed concerning the obligation of killing such a person. And this book goes on and on and on. There is no difference of opinion narrated from him concerning the killing. And it just goes on. Shafi reported, insulting the Prophet and such a person's to be killed, necessitated that they be killed. Okay? That is prescribed by the Sharia. They call this a political killing. Killing. It is for the Imam to give a discretionary punishment with killing. The one who insults the messenger is to be killed. I haven't done the whole book, but hopefully the first few pages has clarified the fact that any sort of insult.
No, but it is. It is. It's it's scary,
Yeah,
but it's clear enough. It's clear enough. It does make sense. That's why Ali Dawah, in one of his videos a few months ago, he actually released a video. I think he was talking about the apostate prophet, the YouTuber, and he
right.
made a video saying that in a Islamic state, this Sharia law would be applied to you, to such people, and he is proud of it. So he was being honest, eh? He was
Yes.
at least he was being honest. That's
Yeah. No.
it's very integral of him, of
No.
being
Agreed.
honest of such.
Yeah. Later on, I'll go to P75.2, and it will show that it's important that we do highlight that point. Yeah, guys, if there's any question in the comment, just at my name, at Lloyd, and hopefully I'll catch the comments. Edkin, please check the comments for me if you can, and thank you again very much for your help. Always, I'm very grateful for your help. If you see any important questions I may have missed, just highlight them for me, please. Or anyone else who notices a question, just highlight so I can. It does show that Nicholas did say, I believe, that you can see the correlation within Islamic countries. The child marriage is obviously a situation that is found especially within
Yeah,
Islamic countries, and this is true, and we can do a show on that another time. Yasin Bechet,
yeah.
what was the question? Yasin, if number chapter, I don't know what, chapter 31, verse
I
18.
cannot see. I cannot see. I cannot see any chats, on my
Yeah, my
side.
chats are flowing. You have, so Kasim Mansour is saying the quality is bad, unfortunately, on your chat. I know that, um, yeah. So, Yasin, if you can post your question again, please. I have not seen your question. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over again. Now, this is the reliance of the traveler. This is the most famous and the most commonly used Sunni Sharia manual in the world, or Islamic sacred law manual, right?
Yeah.
So, this one is also the most highly attested. You'll notice there are warrants of Sheikh Abdul Wakil Durubi, then Sheikh Ali Salman, the report of the International Institute of Islamic Thought, and the certification. What is most critical here is the certification of Al Azhar University. This is the oldest, most famous, and most respected Islamic seminary in the world. So,
Yeah.
and this is a very detailed book. Now, it's a summary, right? It is a single volume, whereas most Sharia manuals are multiple volumes or very, very long books. This one is designed as a traveling companion, hence it's called Reliance of the Traveler. And it has a little bit of
Okay.
everything. So it is a very, very useful book. So you can find references to everything here, and then it will tell you where to look to find more information.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
For our viewers, I wanted to ask: have we answered the question that what did Muhammad consummate his marriage with Aisha before she hit puberty? Did we answer that question? I don't remember answering that question, honestly.
Okay, so puberty. So we'll have a look at that. So for that, we're going to explicitly go into Islamic law. And that is where
Okay.
we will find the
Okay.
answer to that question within the actual law. For instance,
Okay. Okay.
for
That's
instance,
that's fine.
for instance, the Quran is a contradictory book. For instance, you can find one rule that says one thing and another rule that says exactly the opposite, and therefore you get this little tap dance, this little going in circles around the Quran. Same with the Hadith, right? Now, of course, the Sharia law is black and white. It is very blunt. Us Truth says Allah is basically Muhammad, yeah, and then Hope Faith, the issue is this: the eternal law of God and the perfect example. Right now, okay, so we're going to look at chapter M and chapter N, marriage and divorce, within Islamic
Okay.
law. Okay, so it's very important
To
that we,
answer the question whether Muhammad consummated the marriage pre-pubescent.
yeah, because everything
Okay.
that Muhammad did
Okay.
is sunnah, right? It's the way, the example for Muslims to follow. Everything Muhammad did is
Yeah.
legal. To obviously to go against the example of Muhammad is blasphemy. It's ridda, right? And of course
Yeah.
we can always look at what blasphemy is. I'm just busy building my search index at the moment, and then we will go through this. But we're going to see that because Islamic law very explicitly allows marriage to little girls, right? This is
Yeah.
so. This is so simply because Muhammad married a little girl, and therefore the scholars say that this is then allowed. Of
Okay.
course,
So there's Qasim Mansour who's actually got a comment for you. He says, to correct you, Quran is not a contradictory book. So
Um,
just thought to let you know.
well, very simple. It
But
says,
let's.
of course, no.
Yeah.
Look, Muslims will show you that to use your religion to me as mine. You look at Quran 385. No other religion other than Islam will be accepted. Those are contradictions, and for that we have the doctrine of abrogation, right? So the doctrine of abrogation is what obviously deals with the contradictions within Islam. Now, this is the instructions on marriage, right? So
Okay.
obviously, abrogation is how Islam deals with the contradictions within. Okay, so now what we have here, this discusses who should marry, who should not marry, when a woman should marry, desirable characteristics, shaking hands with the opposite sex is unlawful, permissible looking at the opposite sex. Right, so hold on. Yassine says, why did the issue of Aisha's marriage arise only in the 21st century? It was never an issue to Christian missionaries like you in the 19th century. Marriage with children is illegal in Western law. These things have become formalized as civilizations developed. It is only legal
Yeah,
in
I
Islam.
think.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that it's also one of the Muslim scholars made a video on that. Yaqeen Institute. I forget his
Oh,
name,
those
but he's
guys.
from Yaqeen Institute. Yeah. So he also made the same claim that only recently these issues are being raised. And I would also say that the reason why these things are being raised now is that if if within Islam there's a practice that is encouraged, that is taught, it is taught timelessly.
Correct.
You get what I'm saying? And so if it is timeless, and so these things like, child marriage and child acts with with children, sexual activity and stuff, therefore that activity and that specific ruling on this specific issue is applicable in this time, and
Yep.
therefore it is an issue for us as people all around the world. It's not an issue with Christian missionaries. I think that if such is practiced, whether it's even within the Muslim community, I've had people say to me, today, such a thing cannot be practiced.
Right. Of course,
You
now
understand?
Thunderous says
So it's
the
not necessarily that Christian missionaries are picking on Islam.
No.
It really isn't about that.
Well,
It's about the applicability of such a case timelessly.
no, we have
And Islam and its, they're good.
well, it's anything Muhammad did is permanent for all time. The Sharia is permanent, can never change. We now have the presence of Muslim communities wanting to impose Sharia in the West. So obviously, this is now finding scrutiny. Thunderous wants his information age. This
Yeah.
is why it's an issue now, right? So now this is becoming common. So now the first marriage ruling in Sunni Islam, a man who needs to marry because of desire for sexual intercourse and has enough money is recommended to do so. Now, when you do read through the Islamic law within the Hanafi, the Shafi schools, and so on, you don't find reference to as a sacrament. You don't find reference to love. You say, well, very blunt like this: if you need to marry because you want sex and you have enough money, do so. One who needs to marry but does not have enough to pay the expenses is recommended not to marry, but to suppress sexual desire by fasting. And if it is not suppressed by fasting, then he should marry, borrowing the money to pay for the bride's marriage payment, if she will not accept him owing it to her. That's a very basic introduction to marriage law within Islam, and they speak very strongly of sexual desire,
Yeah.
and so on. Okay? Now, I'm going to go through various. Now, let's just go through some of the rulings. We'll have a look at a variety of rulings within the Sharia, right? This is the Sharia that Muslims want to impose on the entire world. This is the Sharia that Muslims speak about that they want to live under. When a free woman asks to marry a suitor who is suitable, her guardian must marry her to him whether she is a virgin or non-virgin and whether she is prepubescent or not. I think that is very, very explicit. I think that is very, very explicit.
Okay, now, yes, now, so the case could be made, right? If I have to play, devil's advocate and argue for the Muslim community, in the sense that I'm from Pakistan, one of the ways in which fornication and adultery within Pakistani communities are controlled is by marrying their children off. This does not mean that the children are you know, allowed to stay together and consummate each other's, you know, the marriage and stuff. It was just to marry each other and just to let each other know that, you know, you guys are married, and therefore when you are old enough, you guys will live together. So it's kind of like preventative measures in place to prevent corruption in the land. So I don't know how that ties in. This does not. It wouldn't necessarily to me mean that, oh wow, you know, it's such a bad practice kind of thing. It is still a bit weird, but it wouldn't be
Well,
as
prepubescent
bad
doesn't
as
specify an
having
age.
sex with.
Prepubescent doesn't
Yeah.
specify an age, and infant marriage is allowed.
No, it doesn't.
Now, Yassin Bechet wants to distract, obviously, with the red herring. Please read Numbers 31. The Old Testament does not apply to me. The Old Testament does not apply to Christianity. Understand? We do not follow the law of Moses. It is illegal in the West to marry children. It is also immoral. There is no sunnah of Jesus having sex with 9-year-olds. There is sunnah of Muhammad doing so. Yes?
Well, he's what scripture did he use?
Numbers 31 verse 18. So let's continue.
Okay,
So,
just understanding, just a quick response on that is the book of Numbers is not necessarily instructive in nature.
yeah.
It's the nature of the book entire is very narrative. So it informs on past events, not necessarily
It's history. It's
instructs
not.
us on, yes, it's history. So what happens in history does not automatically become instructive. You know, for example, if I kill as a father to my daughters, they wouldn't understand like, oh, my dad killed, therefore that, you know, somehow means that it's an instruction for
Yeah.
us to kill.
Well, the
It's,
Quran is
they
commands,
can,
the Quran is
yes, you see?
instruction, whereas the Bible is descriptive, not prescriptive. It is history.
Yes. So there's a lot of, yes. So there must be there needs to be this distinction between what exactly part of the Bible we're reading and how we interpret that. So yeah, let's move on.
So I'll just go through a
So
variety of
does,
laws. Yeah.
yes, go ahead.
I'm going to go
Yeah,
through a
let's
variety of
go
these
on.
laws so
So
that we can see.
yeah.
So, for instance, they talk about it's recommended. So, when a bride is a virgin, whenever the bride's a virgin, the
Yeah.
father of the father's father may marry her to someone without her permission. So, a girl may be married off without her permission if she's a virgin, if she's underage. Okay? Though it is recommended to ask her permission if she has reached puberty. If a virgin's silence is considered as permission. If a virgin is not responsive to the question of wanting to marry, it's assumed that she
Okay,
can't be married off.
sorry, Lloyd,
Yeah.
Kasim is asking a question. He made a statement. He said children under the age of 18 can still be married in 48 states in the US. A quick response. Kasim, we are not discussing whether teenagers can get married. I think the shock effect that I personally have had over a period of time, just looking into the Islamic sources, is that prepubescent, meaning child under age, severely under age, under even 10, are given into marriage for sex, not necessarily just marriage. The shock effect is child under 10 given for marriage and sex. Okay, so yes, I'm sure that children under 18 can still be married in 48 states in the US, but that does not really apply to our
And that's
conversation
not
that we're
and
doing
that's
today.
not besides whatever the US is not law for the entire world. Now, here's a question for you, Kasim. If Muhammad wanted to marry your 9-year-old daughter to have sex with her, would you refuse? So now, next question.
Wow.
Now,
Very, very...
as for the non-virgin,
okay, that's...
now,
yeah, go
now
ahead.
it goes on here. So let me continue with this. Now it says here, as for the non-virgin, a girl who is not a virgin of sound mind, no one may marry her to another after she has reached puberty. So a non-virgin may not be married without her permission after she reaches. So in other words, someone had sex with her prior to puberty. Okay, and they do speak of remarriages. So I'll just continue and I'll provide more and more of these references. A guardian.
As for non-virgin of sound, non-virgin, so she has had sex of sound
Yes.
mind. Oops.
No one may marry her. I brought it back. I've brought it back. You can have a look. I know there's a
Okay.
slight delay on
Yeah,
your end.
no one may marry her to another after she has reached puberty. Oh yeah, that is clear.
Yasin
interesting.
says, I've not proved that she was prepubescent. We're going to demonstrate that Islam, legally, in all four schools of the fiqh, they allow prepubescent marriage. I'm going to go through multiple references. So here they're speaking of a non-virgin who has not reached puberty. Now that means prepubescent. So therefore the scholars interpret that this is legal within Islam. As for the non-virgin of sound mind, so let's continue to. Does that make it clear? Does everyone in the comments and of course Yasin. Now here, understand, it is not legal for Muslims to believe anything ill of Islam. Again, Islam, Allah's law cannot be insulted. So the question is from KL, would you give your 9-year-old daughter or granddaughter to 50-year-old Abdul, right? Aisha was playing the swings and dolls when Muhammad had sex with her. So Yasin, would you allow Muhammad to marry your daughter if she were 9 so that he can consummate the marriage with her? And what does this mean? This in red here. Explain that. So let's continue, right?
Yeah, let's continue.
A guardian may not marry his prepubescent daughter to someone for less money than the amount typically received as marriage payment by similar brides, nor may he marry his prepubescent son to a female who is given more than the amount typically received. Now, they're speaking here of giving your prepubescent daughter away in marriage. Now, I think so. Yasin, does that make it clear that?
Okay. One response also to Kasim asked is what book are you using? We are using a Sharia manual. This is a Sharia manual.
It's in the description.
Yeah, it's in the description.
This is the most famous Sharia manual in the Sunni
it.
world. Check the description. You can come to my channel. It's also, I believe, in your
Kasim
channel.
Mansour, you can have, yeah.
So
Usman Mansour is saying, talk of your own religion that allows child marriages.
No, it's illegal.
Okay,
it's very much illegal.
Yeah, it is illegal. I'm not sure what instruction he's. We're actually finding out, Usman. We're looking at your Sharia manual, your law, your book of jurisprudence that actually instructs people that they can actually and should get married. And so within Christian faith, there's nothing such as I've been studying theology for about 6 years now, and I've never come across an instruction that you should marry a 6-year-old girl as of yet. So I'm not sure what his point is. But anyways, we can go ahead.
Now, look, I didn't provide every single hadith source previously. I mean, we don't have time to go through every single source that exists. I just want to give a sampling of these things, right? So now let's have a look. Now, infant. Now, it's very important that you define infant as infant in the cradle. It's very important that we define infant this way, because an infant means in the cradle. Because as we start to go through this, right, we are going to start.
Yeah, infant.
We start going to learn about infants.
Cradle.
So divorce is valid.
Infant means a small baby.
Right?
Yeah.
So divorce is only valid, right, from any husband who is sane and has reached puberty. So even young boys can be married before they have reached puberty, right? So in other words, divorce is valid from you've reached puberty. So while you are under the age of puberty, you may not be divorced. It's not allowed. So after you've reached puberty, you're considered to, now you have the right and the freedom to make the choice of whether you want to be divorced or not. You can't make the decision about being married, but you can make the decision about being divorced. I'll continue. Okay. So sorry, let me just grab this here. Now, this thing keeps moving, which is a little annoying. Let me bring back my search function. So now they speak here of the divorce of a wife who is prepubescent. Okay, it's not unlawful. Right, so it means the divorce of a wife who is, now why are they talking about prepubescent wives? I find this very, very interesting. Now, he says, Yasin, how can you prove that it's illegal to marry a child in Christian? Christianity does not legislate law. Yasin, Christianity is not a religion of law. Islam's a religion of law. You have Sharia law. Please name for me the scholars who wrote Christian Sharia and give me the name of the book. Give me the page on which I can find Christian law on marriage. Good luck, it doesn't exist. Please show me the book. If you have the evidence to embarrass me, please go ahead. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so Kasim Mansour is stressing the point, if asking for marriage, it's no issue if she's reached puberty. no age restriction mentioned in any religious book. If that's the case, wasn't Mary married to Joseph, who was way older? Okay, so I think that
Joseph is not an example. Now, first of all, I don't believe that
Joseph,
there's
yes,
no age
exactly.
specified. Two, that was under Jewish law. That was Judaism. That's not Christianity. Christianity does not legislate law. None of this has been utilized to create law that allows underage sex in the Western world, right? Only in Islam. And Joseph is not the example for all mankind for eternity. I'll throw it back to you then.
Yeah. So in this sense, like this question comes up again. You see, that Aisha had reached puberty. So had Aisha reached puberty, I think that that's an important question to answer
Yeah.
within
Now,
the Islamic
yeah. Now,
sources.
also, now don't forget, in Islam, technically they believe in all of the Jewish prophets as well. They're all supposedly
Yeah.
Muslims. They're all supposedly prophets of Islam. And in Islam, there's no prohibition on marriage and sex with underage girls, as we are going through the evidence here. So, a woman's post-marital waiting period. Now, as you know, this relates to Quran 65:4, which speaks of the waiting. Yasin, you will behave, you will stay on topic, you will answer, or I will simply, in fact, I'm going to silence you for a few minutes.
Oh, what is he saying? What is he saying?
He's just saying I'm avoiding him, I'm playing pigeon chess. Now, there is no wait. Now, let's look at Quran 65:4, right, which speaks of the waiting period for a woman, which is 3 months. Okay, so now let's look at the official ruling within Islamic law. There is no waiting period for a woman divorced
Yeah.
before having had sexual intercourse with her husband. So if she has not had sex, there is no waiting period. However, a waiting period is obligatory for a woman divorced after intercourse, whether the husband and wife are prepubescent. Right? I hope the Muslims in the channel are listening carefully and looking at the screen. Or one is prepubescent and the other, or one has reached puberty and the other has not reached puberty. And intercourse here means copulation. So your thoughts on that, and those in the comments. This very clearly stipulates what it says. It doesn't mean something else. So your thoughts, Shimon?
Yeah, it's pretty solid. That's all I can say. Waiting period is obligatory for a woman divorced after intercourse. Sure.
Yes. So this is Islamic law. Now this is valid for Sunni Islam. Understand? This is not. Now Muslims would love to tell you about that Shafi fiqh. Well, as if Shafi, Hanbali, Hanafi, and Maliki fiqh are four separate religions. They're not. Don't forget, there is supposed to be unity within the religion. If it's perfect, there is unity, and these schools all agree on these rulings, right? The areas where
Okay, so let's continue with with the sources, because I think the time's running
okay,
out
fine.
and
So
we need to
let me run through
get
the waiting
going.
period for a woman who does not menstruate, whether prepubescent or not, is 3 months. The waiting period for a woman who does not menstruate is whether prepubescent. So in other words, that's your wife. She needs to wait 3 months just in case. Right? We'll continue. Right. So now we're talking about
Waiting period for what? Waiting period for what?
divorce.
Oh, okay.
So here they speak of the husband must be at least 9.5 years old. Okay? A husband of at least 9.5 years old. So now you're talking about a child bride again, a child husband. The husband is not legally considered blah blah blah, but now okay. Now notice they mention here in this number rule 3, the husband is under the above mentioned age, under 9.5 years old. So there are rules that apply to a husband who is less than 9.5 years old. Let's continue, right? Anyone who charges his wife with adultery, okay, provided he has reached puberty. So in other words, a man can charge his wife with adultery, but he must have reached puberty to do so, right? He must have reached puberty to do so. And of course, the husband who does accuse his wife of adultery is disciplined by the magistrate, especially when adultery is impossible, such as when the person accused, his wife, is a mere infant. Especially such as when the wife is a mere infant. So in other words, I'm going to bring...
Wait a minute.
I'm going to
A
bring...
husband who accuses his wife of adultery is disciplined, okay? A man who accuses his wife of adultery, he is disciplined.
This is an infant. If he accuses his wife of cheating on him, but it's impossible. He is disciplined because she could not have voluntarily gone and done something. Someone could have approached
Oh
her,
yeah, you
but
even used you showed us a word, infant in cradles.
this is
So
infant. This is
yeah,
infant.
that was my next
Now
that
you
was
have
my
a
next
man
question.
accusing his infant wife of adultery, right?
Yeah. So my next question is that how do we know how infant is defined within the Sharia manual? And you did in the beginning make note of that, is that within the Sharia manual, an infant is one that is found in a cradle, and therefore cradles are for babies.
Right, exactly. So
Okay.
now we have infants, and we've seen what an infant is. Now you know what an infant is. And they're speaking about you're accusing your infant wife because she should be having sex with you and not with some stranger. Okay, just so you know, this is the other rulings on apostasy, and it says very clearly that whoever voluntarily leaves Islam is killed. There is no ambiguity about that. Okay, there is no ambiguity
Yeah.
about that. So if we go through and I look, right, let me just step through. So in other words, it is not legal for someone to
The screen is stuck on my end. I'm just still looking at infant babies.
yeah, no, so hold on. That's fine. So stuck on your end. So I'll have to. Okay, so it should have changed by now. Do you still see anything?
No, I'm still looking at babies.
Okay, I'm going to change my screen over and I'm going to change back and hopefully you come back. Now, understand, Muslims are not allowed to disagree, right? An apostasy from Islam. So I need to reiterate this. When a person has reached puberty and is sane voluntarily apostatizes from Islam, he deserves to be killed, right?
I am still stuck, eh?
You're still stuck. I'm not sure how we can recover
Oh
that.
no! Oh my goodness! No! I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I
Oh.
by mistake pressed pause on my screen. Silly
Okay.
me.
Right. So now, so understand that Muslims cannot disagree, right? They're not allowed to disagree with Islam. That is apostasy, and apostates are killed. Understand? So now notice, now the final one here on, and I will go to another Sharia manual in a minute, but understand, now this speaks of someone who's prepubescent at the time of intercourse. This has specific reference to someone who's prepubescent at the time of intercourse. So I can move over to the Hidayah and we can discuss that, but I think we've established here that
Okay.
speaking of,
I just wanted to let our viewers know that there's a specific hadith, Sahih Muslim, right? Book 008, number 3311, in which Aisha says, right, narrated, Aisha married the Prophet when she was 7 years old, and he was taken to his household. She was taken to his household as a bride when she was 9, and her dolls were with her. Now, why the dolls issue is important is because within the Islamic discussion and Islamic hadith, a girl having dolls is a child that is still prepubescent. Now you can check that out. Is that a girl that has reached puberty, or is now, first of all, puberty is not a day. It's not like, oh, you sleep tonight, you hadn't hit puberty, and in the morning you've hit puberty. It's a stage, right? It takes a couple of years and stuff. Now in this whole issue, Aisha playing with dolls at that stage within the Islamic law did not allow her to play with dolls if she had reached puberty. Now
correct.
that's the argument. You see, that's the argument being made here, that the Islamic Prophet indeed did have sexual relations with a child that was prepubescent. And how we know that is because it's recorded that she was still playing with dolls. And a girl playing with dolls, found playing with dolls within the Islamic context, is a child that had not reached puberty. And so how do you interpret that? And that's a very clear distinction. made here. So once again, Sahih Muslim, book 008, number 331. Please have a look at that.
Yeah. So let's continue. I'm going to go through the Hanafi book of fiqh.
Yeah.
This is a very large, it's over 2,600 pages. And thank you very much for that comment. Great to see you. This is my first time here. Really good information. Thank you. Right. So now, nikah in its primitive sense. Now, they simply mean in its basic sense means carnal conjunction. In other words, carnal conjunction. You draw the picture in your own mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm just going to bring this up. So that is what marriage is. I can go through multiple other books. I've prepared other references. We don't have the time to go through every one, but I have them, and I can do the show on my own time on my channel another time to go through all of the references. However, let's have a look. Okay, if a man desires to contract his daughter being an infant in marriage, the marriage is lawful. This is from the book of marriage in the Hadaya. Okay. Now,
and what is the Hadaya, just for our...
The Hadaya is the main Sharia manual for the Hanafi school of fiqh. It is, in fact...
For the Hanafi school of fiqh.
Okay. It's the largest school of fiqh in the Islamic world. And also this book is, in fact, still in use in Islamic courts today. In fact, this is the primary manual for Pakistan, for the Pakistani legal system. It's still in use. There are 4 books, 4 major texts that they utilize, but this one is the main ones. Yes, Erkan, I do agree with you, except I cannot say that. Okay, so understand, Shafi, who accounts the adult virgin the same as an infant with respect to marriage. Now they speak of Imam Shafi, who accounts an adult virgin the same as in respect to marriage. Okay, so let's have a look. I want to bring up so infants contracted by their guardians. So that's infants. We've seen infants brings up pictures of babies, right? The marriage of a boy or girl under age is lawful, whether the girl is a virgin or not. I don't know how it's...
So in the mind of the writer at this stage, it seems like there's a possibility that an underage boy or a girl could be not a virgin, and therefore it seems like a normal thing and an accepted thing in the mind of the writer at this stage.
Correct.
That's an interesting thing, and you see, and that's the thing, is that if it was like a frowned upon concept, something to be so normally spoken about, it kind of like allows for this whole issue, is that these children, even they can get married, etc., even if they're virgins or not, doesn't matter. It's like that normal acceptance of this whole issue kind of like allows for us. What else can I interpret the fact that there is sexual intercourse allowed before the child is of age? It's what else can I think of?
Unfortunately, that is the only conclusion. I mean, I'll continue. This is whether the girl is a virgin or not. Marriage to an underage girl is lawful, right? And now, they do say odd things, okay? That, oddly enough, they say infants are not subject to any carnal appetite, fine. But the authority is vested in the father to contract his children during their minority.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to respond to Qasim Mansour. He writes, LOL, girls age in their maturity still play with dolls, so that justification is wrong. Okay, I want you to understand something. Yes, girls, if my wife starts playing with dolls today, that does not mean I can't have that she is a prepubescent child. Of course not. But we're talking about that within the Islamic context, in that time, before the eyes of Mohammed, your prophet, the prophet had passed this ruling that a child under age, prior to puberty, would be allowed to play with dolls.
Correct.
That is the issue. Please don't mix the issues. And so if the child is playing with dolls, she would only be allowed to play with dolls if she was pre-pubescent. She would not be allowed to play with dolls after she had hit puberty, etc. And so what you're talking about, you're looking at the past with the lens of today, but that's not the issue. The issue is, how did Muhammad view Aisha playing with dolls? He viewed that as a child. How did Aisha's mother how did Aisha's father, who I think it was Abu Bakr, wasn't it?
Correct. In
How
fact,
did Aisha's father?
he didn't want to marry his daughter off to Muhammad. He actually did not want to. Um,
Yeah.
so
So how did Muhammad, Abu Bakr, the father of Aisha, view a child playing with dolls?
he
That this
says
child is prepubescent.
he actually
And
said.
so, for him, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, in Sahih Bukhari 762:18 it says narrated Warsaw. The Prophet asked. So Aisha was Muhammad's foster niece, by the way. And it says here the Prophet asked Abu Bakr for Aisha's hand in marriage. Abu Bakr said, "But I'm your brother." So in other words, he resisted. And the Prophet said, "You're my brother in Allah's religion and His book, but Aisha
Yeah, and
is
how we
lawful
are
for me to marry."
interpreting that he resisted is by Abu Bakr recording and writing the word but. No, sorry, he didn't write the word. Sahih Bukhari recording the word but. The word but is an important word for us to understand that that is a resistant word.
Yes. And he says,
Why
"But
don't
I'm your
you
brother."
have food, but I don't want to because I am hungry. But please understand that. Anyways, let's go on.
Right, so understand. So he actually did not want this to occur. Now I'll go on to, again, the case in which the marriage of infants continues to be binding even after puberty. That's on this side on the right here. If the marriage of infants is contracted by the fathers or grandfathers, the marriage is binding upon the parties, the same as if they themselves entered into it after maturity. In other words, we have a marriage prior to puberty, right?
Yeah.
And of course, Islam is always happy to let us know that a woman is deficient in judgment, just so by the way. And of course, you can marry your female slave to any person, just out of sheer interest in the book of marriage. Now, if a girl has been contracted in marriage before she attains maturity, and then they distinguish between after maturity, I'll just do a couple of references. If a father should contract his marriage his infant daughter or his infant son, this is legal, because the authority to contract infants in marriage is founded upon the supposition of their regard for the interest of those infants. So in the interest of the infants, you can marry the infant off, which is insane. And here it says, bail is in like manner approved if your wife is an infant. If your wife is an infant. And of course, a youth under puberty is the same as a full-grown man, and he may marry, now a woman. So here we talk about a woman marries a man, he divorces her with an irrevocable divorce, 3 talaqs. Now they want to return to each other as husband and wife, but now there have been 3 divorces. She can now marry an underage boy. She can marry an underaged child, a prepubescent child. He can have sex with her. He can then divorce her, and she can then return to her first husband and marry him again. So they speak of marrying with the youth under maturity. He can then perform
a youth
under
okay
maturity.
Now I think that this is very important for all our viewers to read with us, right? Let's read all together. A youth under puberty is the same as a full-grown man. A youth under puberty is the same as a full-grown man with respect to legalizing the marriage. That is to say, if a man give his wife 3 divorces, right, under puberty or full-grown, if he divorces his wife, and after her edith, I don't know what that means, marry with her under maturity, and he perform the carnal act with her.
Yes.
Okay, my
now,
Muslim
it says
friends.
here,
Now,
a boy.
you can either
do,
you can do one of two things. You can do one of two things. You can either say no, you reject the Sharia law, your Sharia law. You say that no, that is not true. This is all nonsense. You can say that, or you can say, you can close your eyes to what we just read, or you can read it and, like some very, I must say, how can I say, honest Muslims who accept this and say, yeah, that's who we are all about. And then, that's where the appreciation comes from, is that, oh, you agree to this and you don't see any problem with that. If you see a problem with child marriage and you read these sources with us, then you're disagreeing with your own Islamic Sharia law. That at that stage, then
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're a Muslim. I'm not sure what you would think, but at that stage, you would have to see whether you accept these sources or not at all. So
And they
that's
speak of a
just to
boy.
throw in with.
Yeah, they speak of a boy under puberty able to perform the carnal embrace. Now, also
There
in
we
reference.
go. Page 303. A boy under puberty, but who is such as to be able to perform the carnal embrace, is termed murabik. I have no idea what
Yeah,
that
yeah,
means,
who knows? It's
but
an Islamic term.
I I don't understand murabik, but I understand carnal embrace
Yes.
and under puberty.
Now, of
That's
course,
just common English.
on your
Yeah, go
channel,
ahead.
as we've got going here, these Muslims obviously. Now, in the Islamic texts, Jesus was born of the Virgin Mary. There was a virgin birth. Can Usman Mansur and Qasim Mansur please tell me how old Mary was in the Islamic text? Can you please tell me the age of Mary, who gave birth to Jesus, in the Islamic text? Because apparently it's not good in the Christian text, but you accept it and it's found within the Islamic scriptures. So how old was she, and is it bad in Christianity but good in Islam that you tell the very same story? I'd like you to explain that contradiction. And of course, Joseph is not the example for all mankind. Muhammad is. Now again, answer my question. If Muhammad wants to marry your 9-year-old daughter, will you give her to him? Right, so let me continue. So I'm going to continue here with a couple more references, right? And then I'm going to talk about puberty briefly. And okay, so then, and the final, right, so, and then of course,
You see, I do want to just put out a disclaimer again for my viewers and your viewers. We do not hate. We are reading your sources back to you. I think that at this stage, Lloyd and I, that's all we're doing. We're just reading your sources to you. And page 303, I remember that page. Page 303, that a boy under puberty can have carnal embrace. For an argument's sake, you say that, okay, a girl can't have. Would you say that a boy under the age of puberty you think that that's okay for a boy to have intercourse with a grown woman? Would you agree to that? Because your source is saying that that is the case. And another thing, the reason why we are not concerned with Joseph and Mary, and I grant you that we're not concerned about it. Absolutely not concerned. Lloyd, are you concerned about Joseph and Mary?
no,
I'm not.
no,
The reason why we're not concerned is because their life does not dictate to what we should do. Unfortunately, or fortunately perhaps, for Muslims, what Muhammad did, everything he did, defines the sunnah. So therefore, if it defines the sunnah, therefore it means that for you to do and abide by the sunnah is sunnat.
right,
How did you forget that? For me to not follow Mary and Joseph doesn't mean anything for me. For me
Yeah.
to follow Jesus Christ is what matters the
Right.
most. Jesus does not say in John 14:15, if you love me, you will obey Joseph and Mary. It says, if you love me, you will obey me.
right.
It really is as simple as that. But let's go on.
Yeah, so I will end off shortly with, but let's do this final page. If a man repudiate by irreversible divorce, 3 talaqs, a wife who is under the age of puberty. As I said, this is Sunni, this is orthodox Sunni Islam. This is normal, standard Sunni Islam. But yet such a one, so if a man divorces an underaged wife who is under the age of puberty, one who may admit of carnal connection, and she brings forth a child. Does this make that clear? Okay.
So
this
once
infant
again,
wife is
there
the
is
same.
an allowance.
Notice
for,
this infant wife is the same as a full-grown woman.
Okay, you see, now once again, I think let's make a comment here real quick. I think that this is extremely important. Okay, let's concede the fact for a moment, for argument's sake, that nowhere have we proved that a girl, an infant, or a child under puberty can have sex in Islam. Read this, Qasim, Usman, whoever is reading, my
Yusuf.
friends, read this, Yusuf, read this, and tell me, what do you gather? Whether this infant wife is the same as, wherefore this infant wife is the same as a full grown woman. And the context over here is spoken about is what? Divorce, in the sense that the child has had carnal connection.
Yes. So
Now, I personally am left dumbstruck in the sense that how else should I interpret this? Perhaps there's another way of interpreting that kind of starts ignoring normal English words. And at this stage, I really can't. For me to be committed to the English language and the words that I have gathered all my life, I can't understand anything else. That child sex prior to puberty is allowed.
yes. So understand, I've not gone through every single reference. I have not gone through every single piece of evidence. But I think we have sufficient evidence here to show that Orthodox Sunni Islam allows marriage with underaged girls and underaged boys. It allows sex with and even makes provision for the divorce from and children born from an underaged prepubescent marriage. Because you've seen multiple references to the word infant, which is a child from 0 to 1 year of age. There are multiple references to prepubescent. There's multiple references to the word minor. Yeah, people have asked in the comments. I read through this sometimes for hours a day, making notes. It's hard. It's hard to read this. I will tell you. I get very angry reading this. It's horrifying. And Muslims obviously want to dodge, like the ones in your chat. They obviously have not answered. They refuse to deal with the logic that is required here. Obviously, they want to distract. But I think the Sharia, now look, you can argue in circles around the Hadith, you can argue in circles around the Quran, because there's contradictory verses, contradictory Hadith. The Sharia is black and white, very, very clear. We've just shown the Sharia of the largest school of jurisprudence in Islam, and then the Shafi, which arguably is the second, some say Maliki, but that's debatable, largest schools. And we've used the most famous Sharia manuals, the most authentic Sharia manuals, most highly authenticated, most highly respected. This is the final word of the Islamic scholars. And we've shown from major sites that it's a lie to claim that Aisha was 18. She was 9. And if I show the final section on I'll show one more piece, just on some small discussion on puberty. Okay, just a small discussion on puberty. So now I'm going to switch over.
Yeah.
And one short section that I'll cover. So now, according to Hanafi law, puberty is proved by the emission of seed during dreams, by the power to make pregnant, by menstruation, and by the capacity to conceive. Now understand, so this is for boys when they have a wet dream. This is considered puberty. Now understand though that Islam, if you go through some different manuals, what they speak of is that puberty is a process that lasts several years, and there's the first sign of puberty, the beginning of puberty, and there's the end of puberty. Puberty is not like over like that, snap your fingers, bang, where'd my puberty go? Right? It disappeared in 4 seconds or less. No, it's not like that. Puberty is a process, even in Islamic law. It's not always made clear in all the manuals. You have to read multiples to find them. But notice, for the boy, emission of seed during dreams, by the power to make pregnant, that's for boys. By menstruation, so they'll say, well, if a girl menstruates, then we know she has reached puberty. Or if she falls pregnant, then she's reached puberty. Now, if she hasn't menstruated yet and she falls pregnant, didn't you have sex with her prior to menstruation? Oh, well, she fell pregnant, therefore she was mature. Understand, this contradicts, this last ruling contradicts the previous one. It means there's a loophole. It means that, okay, I had sex with her underage, she fell pregnant, therefore she was mature. This is Islamic logic. Do you understand this? Now notice this is
Yeah.
repeated in the Alliance, right? Page 429 in the PDF and 411 on the page in the book section K 13.8. Puberty applies to a person after the first wet dream, so this is corroborated. Or upon becoming 15. This is the standard age within Sunni fiqh. You will see slightly different ages here and there. Or when a girl has her first menstrual period or pregnancy. Pregnancy is a sign of maturity. So if you have sex with your 10-year-old or your 9-year-old and she falls pregnant, well, she was mature, so justified sex. This is quite literally how this logic works. When was this codified? DHC asked me. This is about you're looking at by the 12th to 14th centuries. I'd say by roughly the 13th century, this was all codified. Say 14th. Let's say 14th century. Right.
Sure.
So your thoughts, Shimon, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's my thoughts. I am a little bit. I must say that the purpose of today's stream was to honestly show, within the Islamic sources what the actions of Muhammad, that whether Aisha was of 6 years of age, we showed this. We have shown this. You can watch the video from the beginning again. I'm sure it'll be uploaded. And that did Muhammad have physical relations consummate the marriage with Aisha prior to her puberty? Yes. I just want to quickly, can I share two hadith? Can I do that? Just two.
Do you want to share your screen?
So, I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry.
Okay, fine.
How
Just
would
read
I do
them.
that?
I can share your screen
Okay.
if you want, but fine, just read them. It's fine. I'll bring them up
Okay.
if need be.
So, Sahih Muslim, book 008, number 3311. Please, book 008, number 3311. Sahih Muslim. Aisha reported that Allah's apostle, sorry, I'm trying to catch up where it's, married her when she was 7 years old, and she was taken to his house as a bride when she was 9, and her dolls were with her. And that is the dolls were with her, she was playing, etc. Now, looking at a different hadith about this whole doll issue. The whole doll issue, there's this guy, sorry, I'm trying to find it. It was with me. Yes, there we go. Narrated Aisha, I used to play with the dolls in the presence of the Prophet, and my girlfriends also used to play with me. When Allah's apostle used to enter, they used to hide themselves, but the Prophet would call them to join and play with me, which was pretty good and nice. Now, the playing with dolls and similar images is forbidden. Now, this is a commentary of Fateh al-Bari, page 143, volume 13. Let me say that again. Page 143, volume 13. This is his commentary on this issue. The playing with the dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it was allowed for Aisha at that time. Why? As she was a little girl, not yet reached the age of puberty. And at this stage, I will just make one comment. I think, in my small little assumption that I would make, is that Qasim, Usman, and all my Muslim friends, I would think that that Fateh al-Bari is a little bit more informed on the issue than you.
Yes.
And I say this humbly. I promise
Shaykh
I say
al-Islam
this
Ibn
humbly.
Hajar al-Asqalani. He's a major scholar
Yes.
within Islam again. And
I think that this guy is a little bit more qualified to make a commentary on the hadith such as this. And he writes on page 143, volume 13, that this was allowed for Aisha to play with dolls at that time, as she was a little girl, not yet reached
the age
of puberty.
That's on the screen. I'm showing that now. So let me show one more item. So I will show a final item that I think would be of use, taken from other Islamic sources. Now, here we're talking about, again, Hanafi fiqh. And this is a woman who has been married before. So if you right? This is a woman who has been married before. And it says here, a woman who has already been married cannot be given in marriage by her father or anyone else unless she agrees to it and gives verbal consent. But it then goes on. So this is a woman already previously married. And it says, and they speak of here, it is limited to the adult instead of the child who loses her virginity before becoming an adult. So, yeah, you should be able to see this on your screen. So, it is limited to the adult instead of the child who loses her virginity before becoming an adult. Now, in case of a girl, here's another law, okay? This is from Pakistan. This is taught in law school in Pakistan. In the case of a girl married during her minority, in other words, she's underaged, prepubescent, she can get the marriage dissolved if she can prove that the marriage has not been consummated. Sorry, I'm just going to shift. Hold on, I need to shift you over. So hold on, I'm going to shift us. I'm going to grab the display. Sorry, here we go. So if the Muslim is married during his minority, or in the case of a girl married during her minority, she can get the marriage annulled, dissolved, if she can prove that the marriage has not been consummated. This is a minor saying, well, he didn't have sex with me while I was a minor, so therefore I can get the marriage divorced. I can get divorced. Do you understand? This is all over Islamic law. This is all over the fiqh.
Okay.
And
so I wanted us to kind of like come to the questions again.
Sure.
This has been a lot of information, and it's been really informative, I must say. Was Aisha a child of 6 years of age? Yes. We have shown that.
From the best
Lloyd
sources, the
has
science
shown
sources.
that from the sources, from within the hadith and all of that. We have seen this. Now, whether you choose not to, if for my future Muslim friends who will watch this, if you choose not to and fast forward those sources that Lloyd will show, that's up to you. You have the freedom to do that. That's completely fine. But we have shown the answer is yes. She was a child of 6 years of age. Unless you're saying you reject Bukhari. That's a different discussion altogether. Number two, Muslims say that Aisha was physically mature before Muhammad consummated the marriage. Is this true? No, it is not true. I just actually showed you two hadith, and quickly even Lloyd actually took out the commentary from Sheikh al-Islam, showing what he actually writes on the issue is that at the age when Aisha was taken into consummation with the Prophet Muhammad, she had not yet reached the age of puberty.
Well,
it's even like written in bold.
I should mention here, and I will. Sorry, yeah. So they speak of the types of sunnah within the Sharia, right? They speak of hadith, like mutawatir hadith. It is obligatory for a Muslim to believe in mutawatir hadith, denial of which is kufr. Denial of which is kufr. Okay?
Yeah, okay. So now,
and it goes on.
About the hadith.
Hadiths of both types, and now they speak of the sahih, right? Rigorously authenticated, and even Hasan hadith. Hadiths of both type are obligatory for a Muslim to believe in. Right? And they do state...
Okay, and we just read from Sahih, so great.
Yes, it is obligatory to believe in those for a Muslim. Otherwise, he has committed apostasy.
Okay, well now the option is with our Muslim friends. You want to publicly or privately commit the sin of apostasy, or you accept the Sahih that we actually showed you. If you want to once again have a look, you can go rewind into our video and have a look at all those sources that we showed you. Look at the commentaries made on those hadith to show and prove undoubtedly that Aisha had not yet reached the age of puberty when Muhammad consummated the marriage with her. And I think that question too is answered very well for me. Thank you, Lloyd, on that.
Thanks.
Number three, the question was, what is now that Muhammad has done this? What is the implication for Islam and Muslims as a whole? And the implication we've seen that the very law, the Islamic law, is built and constructed around the act of of the Islamic prophet that he married and consummated a prepubescent girl, and therefore there's such a a wide gate open for Muslims to make child marriage and child sex a normal act. It's very normative
Understood.
at this stage. Yeah,
Understood. I'm
and
going to provide.
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Thunderous asked a very good question. So Muslims do claim the climate of Arabia contributed to Aisha's rapid maturity. If that's true, Mexico has the same climate. It's as warm. So why do we not have Jennifer Lopez at 9 years old in Mexico? Right? Now, understand, I'm going to bring this up. Within the Sharia, it says here. Now, Edkin earlier asked, does the Sharia sometimes contradict itself? And you can say yes, that you do come across, you do come across that. But not loving the Prophet more than all people. The Prophet said, none of you believes until I am more beloved to him than his wife, child, self, and all people. When they say self, they mean your life. Kirmani says, love of the Prophet means the will to obey him and not disobey him. This is one of the obligations of Islam. And that's in the Fat al-Qadir. And the Prophet said, none of you believes until his inclinations conform to what I have brought. Nawawi says, Sheikh al-Islam Nawawi says, this means a person must examine his acts in light of the Quran and Sunnah, suspending his own inclinations and following what the Prophet has brought. This hadith resembles the word of Allah Most High. When Allah and his messenger have decided a matter, no believer, male or female, has a choice.
In the affair. Okay, now once again, taking the reason, using our reason and our logic and applying to this whole issue, is seeing that clearly what the Islamic prophet has brought is his life, through his life, etc., and the hadith, etc., whatever was written there. In the sense that now what you have is Muslims, their free will to exercise whatever that they think is taken away from them, and are told and instructed that you think in terms of the Islamic prophet's actions. You have to do that. And so at the point where you don't do that, then you're disobeying your own religion. If Muhammad and his life defines sunnah, for him to marry and consummate a 6-year-old, a prepubescent girl, it is an act of sunnat. And that, my friends, is the very reason why even we titled this whole video and this whole stream, is that the implications of Muhammad's marriage and why I cannot become a Muslim is because there is this timeless implication to Islam and its laws, which apply to till this very day. And if you want to reject it or whatever the case is, that's a different discussion altogether. But we have shown you that Aisha was 6, that she was prepubescent when Muhammad married her and consummated the marriage. She had not reached puberty. That's a lie that she had reached puberty. Okay? And on top of it all, the implication means that today Muslims can do the same thing. They're allowed to do it. Now, my question, I think even Lloyd asked a very good question, is to all our viewers, and more specifically to my Muslim friends, are you comfortable with the acts of Muhammad? Let's use a little bit of hypothetical here. Let's just assume that the Islamic prophet was alive today. Would you be comfortable if he came to you and said, I want to have sex with your 9-year-old girl, and you knew that she hadn't reached puberty? Would you be comfortable? Would you be comfortable? And let me say this respectfully. I promise you, let me say this respectfully. Would you be okay with me looking at your infant child girl with me? And I say this respectfully and humbly because this is the implications of it. That I approach you and I ask you, can I please marry your daughter at that age? Would you be okay with that? I promise you, there was once actually a guy who actually approached me Um, Regardless of whatever age my daughter is, even if she's a grown woman, a guy just approaching and asking for her hand in marriage, just like, is not just going to be slipped by so easily by me. There'll be a lot of scrutiny. As a father, I want my children around me. I'm not going to be that comfortable. And so for Islam, the implications is that young children, there's a great allowance for young boys and girls to start engaging in sexual activities, at least within the confines of marriage. I can grant that at least within the confines of marriage. But would you say, a question that I would leave with all our listeners is that, for me, in my mind, that is morally wrong. It is not okay for me. Please answer this question, perhaps in the comment section, if in the future you watch it. Is it okay for you?
Yeah.
Would you say that Muhammad's action and Islamic law that allows this kind of thing is good, or is it morally bad? What would you say?
I mean, for Christians, that's an easy thing to answer, but Muslims need to.
Yes.
I want to mention a couple of things just to wind down. Yeah. In Islam, I need to mention slander, right? Riba. And of course, slander is permitted. Islam does permit slander. And of course, permissible lying. There's a section in the Sharia called permissible lying. It is lawful to lie in Islam. And in fact, it is obligatory. You'll see the section here called obligatory lying. I'll skip the obligatory lying bit, but of course, this is allowed. But I will just go to the section on slander. I'm going to do a very brief overview. Slander means to mention anything concerning a person that he would dislike. Notice that is the primary definition of slander in Islam. Not to tell a lie about someone. In Western law, to lie about someone, to tell an untruth, to try to ruin them, is considered slander. It's an offense, it's a crime. In Islam, if you tell the truth about someone, but that truth is potentially embarrassing, that is slander. That is the crime. So in other words, that's why we are told we are spreading hate. When we tell the truth from Islam's own scriptures, when we tell the truth from the sahih hadith, we are told we are spreading hate because we are telling truths that are embarrassing, truths that embarrass Muhammad, truths that embarrass Islam, truths that embarrass Allah. So the problem is they are not allowed to believe that Muhammad is less than perfect. If they ascribe any kind of defect, a moral defect, for instance, pedophilia, to Muhammad,
I remember that.
Then the penalty is death. They are not allowed to view Muhammad as less than perfect. And they're not allowed to say anything about someone that he would dislike. Now, we are stating truths that Muhammad would dislike, that Islam dislikes. So therefore, this is considered hate in Islam. Understand? Now, unfortunately, just pause. So they're in the position of having... Sure. So because the Sahih shows moral defects in Muhammad, because the Sahih shows crimes of Muhammad, like torturing a man to death for money, right? Sex with a child. These things morally impugn Muhammad. They morally indict Muhammad. Now, unfortunately, because of this contradiction, they have to lie about and reject their own sources to defend Muhammad. This forces them to lie about their own religion. Yes, you're saying?
Yeah, and that's the struggle here. I think that even in my videos, one of the things that I did make a distinction early on in my apologetical career is that there are two types of skeptics: an honest skeptic and a dishonest skeptic. Now, the difference between the two is that the honest skeptic would disagree while accepting the charge, right? The dishonest skeptic would disagree while rejecting the charge. And so what happens is that then discussing with a person who is a dishonest skeptic becomes an exercise in futility. It's a waste of time. We have shown, Lloyd has clearly shown, taken us through, he's 11 years he's been within the Islamic community studying for a very long time, I must say, and 3 years specializing in Sharia law. That is no joke. For us to for us to be exposed to such, material, we must take this seriously. We have to, as honest and as integrally as we can, without hate, without any, how can I say, disfavor toward the Muslim community. We simply, and I specifically, who asked Lloyd to come on and please discuss this with me, am saying this. The reason why we talk about these things, objectively showing from within the sources, is the reason because I want to answer the question, why do I not return back to Islam? And the reason being is this is one reason, that there is this stain, this really dark stain of immorality that is like all over, the covering of Islam, that I cannot look past the stain. I really just can't. And so for me, I hope that this one reason gives my Muslim viewers enough of an answer. Why do I continue to reject and not come back to Islam? That's all I wanted to say. Is there anything that you wanted to say, Lloyd?
No, that's it from me. Look, I actually find it incredibly draining to read this kind of thing. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
People understand it. It's actually really emotionally draining. It also makes me very angry. And this is the reason that I do what I do. Just this, I needed to speak up. I needed to speak out. And I want to show Muslims, this is the truth of your own religion. You need to own this. This is your Sharia law. You want to impose this on the world. You expect us to follow it. So accept the truth of it. This is.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, bring me the most authoritative.
Sorry, I had a acknowledgement there. That's very sweet of End Time 2016. He says, Lloyd and the Crosstalk, thanks for your lesson. Shame, man. Thank you. You're welcome, End Time 2016. You're welcome.
Thank you. End Time's a long-time supporter of the channel, and I really appreciate his ongoing support and kind words. So yeah, understand, guys. We have provided all of the references. I can make more available. At some point, I'll probably tackle this on my own channel over 2 or 3 episodes to go in detail through everything, show you exactly where it is, what all the books, make every single one of my references available. If someone could collect all the hadith that speak of Aisha's age and send me a list by email, that would be appreciated. I actually have it somewhere, but heaven knows where I put it. So if someone can just collate all that into one document and send it to me, that would be great. And I can go through every source, and I will do a show on Islam and women. So Shamoon, thank you very much. I mean, I think this was long overdue within the apologetics world.
Yeah.
Guys, yes, please slap that like button and go to the Crosstalk channel, slap that like button too, okay? Please. If you didn't like it, slap the dislike button twice, right? And so please sub with him. Shamoon, would you like to do other shows in the future? Can we discuss other topics like Islam on women or other important Christian topics which are very relevant to Islam and Christianity? I mean, because I'd love to have you back on the channel again and do more.
Definitely. Next, I actually wanted to talk something that's a little bit more personal to me. That's something that's not, vague and stuff. So the next one that I would really appreciate talking about is as an apostate, as a murtad, right? That's the Islamic term for me, as an apostate, as somebody who's filthy and dirty to the Islamic community. What does the law of Islam say should happen to me?
Because should be killed. I showed that the ridda is it falls under ridda. The apostle.
Yeah.
I'll go back to it. I mean, why not? I may as well just go back to it. Sorry, it's busy here. I need to. So I'm going to bring up this just to end off this then. So here we go. Apostasy from Islam is ridda. And so all of this falls under, this is a catch-all for all of those conditions where Muslim leaves Islam, but whatever means. Whoever voluntarily leaves Islam is killed. Okay? That is very, very clear. And I'm going to go.
Yeah,
and here's the ruling.
So what I wanted to do is, good, sorry.
Here's the ruling. When a person who has reached puberty and is sane voluntarily apostatizes from Islam, he deserves to be killed. They will say, ask him to repent. If he refuses, he is immediately killed. I think that's very, very clear.
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot more to talk about within Islam and Christianity. The next one we could probably even have something apostasy on apostasy, like a
Hmm.
little bit more of from within the Quran as well, and the commentaries and things like that. Just looking at the whole issue of violence. Is the religion of Islam a peaceful religion? I think that is very. I'm not sure if you've done that on your show, but
Many times.
definitely within. Okay. So for my audience and the Muslim audience within Swaziland, I just wanted to kind of make that available to them as well to kind of answer the question: is Islam a religion of peace? Hello, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. So is Islam a religion of peace or not? So I just wanted to talk about that as well. And perhaps we can do another one on the Trinity if they have questions,
I
misconceptions or
think
whatever
that
the
would be a
case is.
fantastic
It's,
discussion. Yes. And also
yeah,
I
because
I
yeah.
will invite you in the future. I've got a friend in the channel, Ask Truth Apologetics. If you can just wave and say hello, he certainly wants you to come on his channel as
I
well.
ask truth apologetics, trusting that you're well, man.
Yeah, so I've got friends who are keen to have you on, and I will certainly try and help you grow your channel and get you onto other channels. And that's him there in the channel.
Thank
Says,
you. Really looking forward to that.
so I'd like to introduce you to other people, make some friends, and yeah. So thank you, Thunderous, for that offer. I will get in touch with you separately, and about that, much appreciated. Okay, so yeah, and Thunderous is also an ex-Muslim, and very, very interesting guy to talk to. Fantastic conversations,
Okay.
done some great shows. So yeah, thank you for being part of this community, and I thank you for having me on your channel, and of course thank you for coming onto my channel. We're broadcasting on
Well,
both
I
channels
should say thank
simultaneously.
you to you. Thank you for having me on your channel. And really, thank you for educating me today and really exposing a lot of information for our Muslim viewers and our Christian viewers on this specific issue, because I think that this is a very touchy and a very needed topic to speak on. So I really appreciate all the work that you've put in.
Okay, no, appreciate it. Kami, thank you. I just don't have, we don't have, we're going to end now, so unfortunately we don't have time, but in the future, please come back and we'll talk some more about what you just mentioned here. Thank you guys.
Definitely.
So lovely comment here. What you're doing is beyond praise. You're taking the cross coming from where you come from. I salute you. May Jesus himself, the captain of the Lord's host, protect you. So yes, thank you everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for your questions, your help. And yeah, we will see you next time. So we'll do more shows, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.